Right now, someone is sitting in a bunker with their finger hovering over a button that could kill a billion people, and they have 25 minutes to decide if you're one of them. The US and Russia each maintain hundreds to over 1,000 strategic nuclear warheads on constant high alert. These aren't stored in warehouses waiting for politicians to debate. They're armed, targeted, and ready to launch within minutes of an order. An ICBM screaming across continents takes 25 to 30 minutes from launch to impact. Submarine-launched missiles fired from vessels lurking off coastlines, as little as 10 to 15 minutes. That's less time than it takes to watch a sitcom episode. Less time than your morning commute. And in that narrow window, someone has to decide if the radar signature they're seeing means the end of the world or just a computer glitch. When nuclear weapons detonate over cities, they don't just explode. They create firestorms. Historical data shows that half of all city-level nuclear detonations have produced firestorms that consumed entire urban areas. Imagine every building, every car, every tree igniting simultaneously. The air itself becomes fire. Oxygen gets sucked out of basements and subway tunnels as the firestorm feeds. Most people don't die from radiation in these scenarios. They die from the blast wave that turns concrete into shrapnel, or they burn alive as their city becomes a furnace. The ones who survive the initial detonation get to watch their skin fall off in sheets as thermal radiation burns through layers of tissue in milliseconds. But the real nightmare begins after the bombs stop falling. Studies from Rutgers and the National Academies reveal that just 100 city-destroying firestorms could inject enough soot into the stratosphere to trigger nuclear winter. Global temperatures would plummet by 1 to 6 degrees Celsius. That doesn't sound like much until you realize it means crops fail worldwide. Precipitation collapses, growing seasons shrink by 10 to 40 days, and this doesn't last for one bad year. We're talking about years of dark, cold conditions where nothing grows. Mass starvation follows in every country, including the ones that never fired a single missile. Children in Brazil starve because Moscow and Washington couldn't figure out their problems. Families in India die of hunger because of decisions made in Pentagon war rooms. If this is making you uncomfortable, good. You should be. Hit that subscribe button because we're diving into the scenarios that actually keep military planners awake at night, and most people have no idea how close we are to these becoming reality. The weapon systems designed to deliver this apocalypse have names and faces. The US Minuteman III ICBMS sitting in silos across Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming. Russia's RS-24 Yars ICBMs that can carry multiple warheads and evade missile defense systems. Ohio-class submarines for the US and Borei-class for Russia, prowling the oceans right now, carrying enough firepower to end civilization multiple times over. These submarines are second strike platforms, meaning even if every city in America or Russia is destroyed, these vessels will still surface and launch their payloads. Mutually assured destruction isn't a deterrent when everyone's already dead. Herman Kahn and Thomas Schelling were the theorists who convinced governments that nuclear war could be winnable if you just calculated the acceptable losses correctly. Their work shaped modern targeting doctrine, which explicitly includes civilian infrastructure, electrical grids, and agricultural systems. This is the only weapon ever created where the stated goal is destroying industrial civilization itself, not capturing territory, not defeating armies, erasing the conditions that allow modern human life to exist. Now imagine taking a nuclear weapon and engineering it specifically to make the planet uninhabitable. That's what cobalt-salted bombs do, and they're not theoretical. You wrap the nuclear core in cobalt-59. When the weapon detonates, neutrons bombard that cobalt shell and transmute it into cobalt-60, one of the most dangerously radioactive isotopes known to science. Cobalt-60 has a half-life of 5 years, but it remains intensely radioactive for decades. As the fallout spreads through wind patterns, ocean currents, and the food chain, it contaminates everything it touches. Soil becomes poisonous, water becomes lethal, fish absorb it and carry it across oceans, crops uptake it through their roots. Physicists and Time magazine analysts have calculated that tens of thousands of megatons of cobalt-salted devices could generate enough persistent radiation to threaten human survival on every continent. You don't need precision targeting when your goal is making the Earth itself toxic. Leo Szilard, one of the physicists who helped develop the atomic bomb, publicly described this concept in 1950. He wasn't proposing it. He was screaming a warning that humanity had created the capacity to build a true doomsday weapon that would poison the entire planet. The Atomic Energy Commission called him alarmist. They said it was impractical fear-mongering. Then, in 1971, the Soviet Union conducted a massive underground test in the Siberian taiga, attempting to excavate a canal using nuclear explosives. The test accidentally demonstrated exactly what Szilard had warned about. Large-scale environmental cobalt activation occurred. Decades later, researchers visiting the site found cobalt-60 still emitting dangerous levels of gamma radiation. The contamination hadn't faded. It had become part of the landscape. Russia's Poseidon nuclear torpedo has brought this nightmare back into the spotlight. Western intelligence analysts believe it could be salted with cobalt specifically to maximize long-term contamination of coastal regions. Picture a major city like New York, London, or Shanghai. The torpedo detonates offshore, creating a massive tsunami that floods the city. But the water isn't just water anymore. It's carrying cobalt-60. Every surface it touches becomes contaminated. Every building, every street, every underground tunnel. The city doesn't just get destroyed. It becomes a radioactive dead zone for generations. You're not rebuilding. You're abandoning millions of square miles of coastline permanently. Biological warfare operates on a completely different horror scale because once it starts, you can't see it coming until it's everywhere. Potential pandemic pathogens are strains that scientists have deliberately enhanced in laboratories to study worst-case scenarios. Higher transmissibility, immune system evasion, increased lethality, these aren't natural mutations. They're engineered features. The Cambridge Working Group documented that high-security labs in the United States alone experience incidents with dangerous agents like smallpox, anthrax, and weaponized flu strains more than twice per week. Every week. Those are the incidents we know about in facilities that are supposed to be nearly infallible. An extinction-level pathogen would combine the worst possible characteristics: airborne transmission so it spreads through a single cough or breath, a long incubation period where infected people feel fine and go about their lives, spreading it everywhere before they even know they're sick, a high reproduction number where each infected person passes it to 5, 10, or more others. Then you add high lethality or permanent disabling effects. With modern air travel, a respiratory pathogen released in any major city would reach every continent within 48 hours. Historical influenza data shows that once a new strain achieves sustained human transmission, it can infect a quarter of the world's population within 2 years. Scientists have already proven these features can be engineered. Researchers created a mousepox variant that completely defeated both vaccines and natural immunity. The implications were immediate and terrifying because the techniques could be applied to smallpox, which has a 30% fatality rate even with modern medical care. Gain-of-function experiments on H5N1 bird flu successfully made it transmissible between ferrets, the gold standard for predicting human respiratory spread. H5N1 currently has a human fatality rate above 50%, but it doesn't spread easily between people. These experiments remove that safety barrier. The truly nightmare part of biological weapons? There's no recall button. Once a pathogen is released, it's out there. You can't prove who released it. Attribution is nearly impossible. Deterrence collapses because you can't retaliate against an enemy you can't identify. By the time hospitals start filling with patients showing symptoms, the infection network has already gone global. You're not containing it. You're watching it spread in real time across every population center on Earth. There is no off switch. There is no antidote that can be manufactured and distributed fast enough. You're just hoping that medical systems don't collapse before someone develops a treatment. And in a worst-case scenario, there isn't enough time. Chemical weapons bring the terror down to a personal, visceral level. VX nerve agent is so absurdly lethal that 5 to 10 milligrams on your skin will kill you. That's less than a single drop of water. You don't need to inhale it. You don't need to ingest it. Just microscopic contact is enough. VX and Novichok class agents work by shutting down acetylcholinesterase, the enzyme that allows your muscles to relax after contracting. Without it, every muscle in your body locks into sustained contraction. You convulse violently, your jaw clamps shut, your diaphragm freezes, and you suffocate while fully conscious. High-dose exposures kill within minutes. Lower doses take longer, giving you time to understand exactly what's happening as your body betrays you. The 1995 Tokyo subway attack showed what happens when a nerve agent is released in a confined public space, even imperfectly. Aum Shinrikyo, a doomsday cult, released sarin gas in one of the world's busiest subway systems. Thousands were hospitalized. 12 died. But the real damage was psychological. An entire megacity was paralyzed with fear. Emergency rooms were overwhelmed. Nobody knew if more attacks were coming. Nobody knew which train or building might be contaminated. The whole city held its breath waiting for the next release. Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of North Korea's leader, was assassinated with VX in a crowded airport. 2 women approached him and smeared the agent on his face. He felt ill almost immediately. Within 20 minutes, he was dead. Security footage shows him staggering around the terminal trying to get help as the nerve agent shut down his nervous system. He died in front of hundreds of witnesses who had no idea they just walked past a chemical weapon attack. VX and Novichok agents are less volatile than sarin, meaning they persist on surfaces for hours or days. A contaminated subway car, airport terminal, or office building becomes a death trap. Cleanup requires specialized equipment and training that most cities don't have enough of. Now imagine coordinated releases at multiple high-traffic locations simultaneously. Every major subway system in New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, every major airport. Enclosed sports arenas during packed events. The hazmat response capacity of the entire world would be overwhelmed within the first hour. Hospitals would be flooded with tens of thousands of casualties, both real exposures and psychosomatic panic. Nobody would know which public spaces were safe. Society would lock down immediately out of pure terror. And while nerve agents alone might not end the species, they create the exact conditions that trigger nuclear escalation. Governments assume they're under WMD level attack and respond with everything they have. Food systems are the silent vulnerability that nobody thinks about until it's too late. Half of humanity depends on crops grown with synthetic fertilizers containing nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Without those inputs, modern agricultural yields collapse. Fertilizer production is concentrated in a handful of countries. China alone controls around 30% of global phosphate fertilizer supply. During 2021 and 2022, China restricted exports and cut outgoing fertilizer shipments by roughly half. That single policy decision created global shockwaves. The Ukraine war exposed just how fragile the system really is. Sanctions, banking restrictions, and insurance problems created fertilizer shortages that sent prices skyrocketing by almost 200% in some regions. European fertilizer production dropped by 70% because natural gas prices made production economically impossible. Farmers globally started using less fertilizer or skipping it entirely. Yields dropped months later when harvest came. The World Food Program issued warnings that missing even a single planting season creates a famine wave that kills millions. You can't rush food production. If fertilizer doesn't arrive before planting, you don't get a crop that year, period. Imagine purposeful, coordinated strikes on this system. Fertilizer plants bombed or sabotaged. Seed banks destroyed. Port infrastructure rendered inoperable. Key logistics nodes taken offline. Layer in cyber attacks that cripple agricultural software, payment systems, and GPS-guided equipment. Suddenly you can't plant, can't harvest, and can't transport food even if you manage to grow it. Multiple regions face simultaneous agricultural collapse. Grocery stores empty within days as panic buying accelerates. Governments try to ration, but rationing during a shortage just triggers riots. People tolerate a lot. They tolerate corruption, oppression, even violence. But empty shelves and the prospect of watching their children starve, that ignites regime collapse, and it happens in weeks, not years. Countries with strategic grain reserves last a few months longer, then they fall too. Modern nuclear command and control relies on satellites that detect missile launches by tracking the heat signatures of rocket engines. These satellites give leaders minutes of warning and confirmation that what they're seeing is real. Destroy those satellites, and suddenly, every radar blip, every sensor anomaly, every computer glitch looks like it might be incoming nuclear missiles. Without space-based verification, leaders are forced to operate on worst-case assumptions. Launch on warning becomes the default because waiting to confirm means your missiles get destroyed in their silos. The 1983 Soviet false alarm incident is the most famous close call. A satellite system malfunctioned and reported that the United States had launched 5 ICBMs at the Soviet Union. The protocol said to immediately prepare a retaliatory strike, but Stanislav Petrov, the officer on duty, made a judgment call. He didn't trust the system. He waited. He cross-checked with other sensors. He concluded it was a false alarm, and he was right. If he had followed protocol, nuclear war would have started because of a computer error. Anti-satellite weapons aren't science fiction. The US, Russia, China, and India have all successfully tested ASAT systems that can shoot down spacecraft in various orbits. These tests have created massive debris fields that threaten other satellites. A large-scale ASAT attack wouldn't just blind nuclear early warning systems, it would destroy GPS, cutting off navigation for everything from commercial airlines to military drones. Satellite phone networks would go dark. Weather satellites would be gone, leaving meteorologists blind. The timing infrastructure that synchronizes financial markets and high-frequency trading would collapse, halting global markets instantly. Within hours of a major ASAT strike, the world would be in chaos, airlines grounded, markets frozen, communication networks degraded, and military forces would be on maximum alert, operating with degraded information, trying to figure out if they're under attack. That's the exact environment where a false alarm turns into a real launch. Nuclear forces that can't see or verify what's happening default to assuming the worst. They launch preemptively. They misinterpret radar noise as incoming missiles. Confusion in space becomes mushroom clouds on the ground, and by the time anyone realizes it was a mistake, hundreds of millions are already dead. Dead hand systems are designed to ensure that even if a country's entire leadership is vaporized in a first strike, their nuclear arsenal still retaliates. The Soviet perimeter system, which Russia still maintains in some form, monitors seismic sensors, radiation detectors, communication networks, and radar feeds. If enough indicators suggest the country is under nuclear attack and no human authorization signal is received within a set time frame, the system automatically enables a massive launch. Pre-programmed missiles fire without any human in the loop. The entire Cold War was littered with false alarms. Flocks of geese that looked like bombers on radar, faulty computer chips that randomly inserted attack indicators into displays, satellite systems that misread cloud patterns as missile launches. Every single one of those incidents was stopped because a human questioned the data and refused to launch. But dead hand systems are built for scenarios where those humans are already dead. A false alarm during a crisis, especially after leadership has been targeted or communication is lost, could trigger automated retaliation with no one left to question it. Once dead hand launches begin, there's no stopping them. Missiles leave their silos, submarines surface and fire their payloads. Communication infrastructure is already destroyed by the first strike, so there's no way to send abort codes even if someone realized it was a mistake. The entire doctrine is built on the assumption that civilization has already ended, so the system's job is just to make sure the enemy dies too. The existence of these systems forces adversaries to build bigger arsenals and adopt more aggressive launch policies because everyone assumes that decapitation strikes won't work. It's an automated doomsday machine, and its very presence makes nuclear war more likely. The final scenario is the one that keeps strategic planners awake at night because it's not about one weapon, it's about everything at once. Multi-domain warfare combines cyber attacks, space weapons, nuclear strikes, conventional military operations, biological releases, and chemical weapons in a single coordinated campaign. Modern military doctrine is moving toward these integrated approaches specifically because they're more effective than any single weapon system. Picture this: limited nuclear strikes take out power grids in major cities. ASAT weapons destroy communications and GPS satellites. Cyber attacks cripple hospital networks, logistics software, and financial systems. A highly contagious engineered pathogen is released in transportation hubs. All of this happens simultaneously within a 24-hour window. Hospitals are suddenly facing surge demand from nuclear casualties, chemical exposure fears, and a rapidly spreading outbreak, but they have no power, no network access, no way to track supplies or coordinate with other facilities. Medical staff can't communicate. They're working in the dark with no information about what's actually happening outside their walls. Food distribution collapses immediately. Even if farms are intact, cyber attacks on shipping companies, rail scheduling systems, and payment networks mean food rots in warehouses while stores are emptied by panic buying. Trucks can't navigate without GPS. Drivers don't show up because they're trying to protect their own families. Supply chains that normally operate with just-in-time efficiency break down completely within 72 hours. Governments lose situational awareness. Satellite links are dead. Communication networks are compromised. Centralized databases are corrupted or inaccessible. Leaders can't get accurate information about what's happening in their own countries, let alone coordinate international responses. They can't reassure the public because they don't know what's true. They can't deploy relief because they don't know where it's needed most. Military commanders see attacks across multiple domains simultaneously and assume they're facing an existential first strike. The attacks might be limited in raw destructive power, but the fact that they're coordinated across nuclear, biological, chemical, cyber, and space domains signals total war. Rules of engagement say to escalate immediately. Launch everything before you lose the capability to launch anything. The collapse here isn't from a superweapon. It's from overlapping failures cascading faster than any response can adapt. The power goes out during the pandemic. Food distribution stops during the panic. Nuclear chains of command make hair-trigger decisions when communication is at its worst. Each system failure makes the others worse. A conventional response to one attack triggers nuclear escalation because nobody can verify what's actually happening. The biological release spreads faster because hospitals are overwhelmed with chemical and nuclear casualties. The cyber attacks prevent coordination of any effective response to any of the threats. And once that cascade starts, there's no clear way to stop it. Every system designed to prevent catastrophe depends on other systems that are also failing. It's not about which weapon is most powerful. It's about how they interact when deployed together against a civilization that's optimized for efficiency but has almost no redundancy or resilience. We've built a world that works beautifully when everything works, but shatters completely when multiple things fail at once. These aren't distant possibilities. Every weapon system described here exists right now. The doctrines are written. The protocols are established. The only thing preventing these scenarios is a combination of deterrence, luck, and the hope that the people with their fingers on the triggers will choose restraint when the moment comes. How much longer do you want to bet on that?